Sarah Henderson, thank you for your time. It is a sad time there, of course, in your electorate today. Just how much of an impact will the closure have on your community?
Ashley, there is no doubt this is a very emotional day, a very emotional time for a number of hundred workers who will lose their jobs today. Ford has been a part of our city for 91 years, since 1925. So for Ford workers, for suppliers and for the entire Geelong community, it's a very, very tough day. But at the same time, Ashley, we're very focused on the fact that Ford is continuing to have a very strong presence in our city through the Research and Development Centre here in Geelong and also Lara's Proving Ground. So a very strong workforce of some 500 workers, and along with a great story with a number of local manufacturers actually exporting Ford components. So despite the sadness of today, there is some very important upside.
Yeah, well, some workers are being redeployed, but I did see one prediction today suggesting that more than half the people losing their jobs today won't ever work again. Is that about right?
Well, our government, the Turnbull government, is working very, very hard in many ways to drive jobs in advanced manufacturing. And in fact, some $5.25 million was provided directly to Ford just to assist with this transition over the last 3 years. There are many ways in which we are doing this, Ashley. $155 million under our Growth Fund, the local Geelong Region Innovation and Investment Fund, which has created more than 800 jobs. We've also got a local fund, the Geelong Region Job Connections Program. So right across the board, including our Advanced Manufacturing Industry Growth Centre, which we won here in Geelong, we are very, very confident about the future of manufacturing for our city. But there is no doubt that it is a very tough time. There is some uncertainty, and it's also a very emotional time, I have to say, for the whole community.
It won't surprise you to learn that the ACTU is blaming your government for this today, saying that the Abbott-Turnbull governments have brought on the end of the car industry. It's arguing the coalition needs to take responsibility for those workers who have been affected, and you've just told us some of the ways you're doing that. Mr Shorten today is alleging that the government is treating manufacturing jobs essentially as, he described it as a second-class industry. He's been arguing that with Ford ending production today and also the looming end of manufacturing at Holden and Toyota, that we could see up to 40,000 jobs lost in the sector as a result. Is there actually a plan to transition each and every one of those workers?
Well, not only is Bill Shorten being very irresponsible in the comments he's made today, he's also been very unprincipled and not telling the truth. The fact of the matter is, Ashley, that Ford announced its closure under the previous Gillard government in May 2013. So this announcement happened under Labor, and in fact I do have to say, despite the ACTU's misleading statements today, the AMWU, to give it its credit, has actually praised the way in which the transition has happened. So we inherited this. We're very, very sad, of course, but we have worked extremely hard. And one of the ways in which we are looking to the future, you know, through our Advanced Manufacturing Growth Centre that I mentioned, is looking at the incredible investment that our government is making in defence industry jobs. They're a very, very important advanced manufacturing jobs, and of course the Land for 100 project, a $3 billion project. There's enormous work going on in our city to make sure that we land a big slice of the pie in relation to those future jobs. So right across Australia, and of course under the Turnbull government since 2013, we are working extremely hard to drive the confidence. And actually, let me just say, even at the election campaign, we saw the most pathetic and paltry commitment from Bill Shorten and the member for Corio, Richard Marles, to Geelong manufacturing. They committed only $7 million, which is frankly pathetic. Just locally, we've committed a $20 million jobs and investment package for our region, and a big part of that is to drive the manufacturing jobs of the future. And under our Growth Fund, we've got, of course, our auto diversification program, our Next Generation Manufacturing Investment Fund. So an enormous amount of work is going in to identifying and growing those jobs of the future.
That may be so, but today the Senator Nick Xenophon has revealed figures from the Parliamentary Budget Office showing that there's actually been an underspend of $1.24 billion in the automotive transformation scheme. He says that's a disgrace. He says industry figures are telling him that the program was grossly oversubscribed, with a lot of worthy projects being left out. Would it surprise you as an MP on the ground dealing with this issue if money isn't flowing the way it should be?
Well, I have to say, Nick Xenophon does not understand how the ATS works. That's the bottom line. The ATS is dependent on the number of cars produced in Australia, and there has been a very significant amount of money under the ATS, many hundreds of millions of dollars, to support car manufacturing right to the very end. And in fact, Ford has received some $300 million between 2011 and 2015 under the ATS program, along, as I mentioned, with our Next Generation Manufacturing Investment program, and particularly through the Automotive Diversification program to support component manufacturers. So the bottom line is that even the car companies themselves, Ashley, they have not complained about the amount of industry support they have received. It's something like $7 billion since 2000. The fact of the matter is that, unfortunately and regrettably, the car companies made the decision to leave Australia. They said that simply it was not sustainable to keep on manufacturing in this country. But I want to emphasise that where the jobs are in Ford and with the other car companies are in the engineers, the designers, the innovators, the scientists, the testers, and all of that work. A really vibrant community is here in Geelong, and they are one of only 4 global centres here in Geelong producing and designing cars for the global Ford market. So we are incredibly confident about our future as a strong centre of automotive manufacturing and engineering in the years ahead.
Is this actually the end, though, when it comes to the actual manufacturing of cars? Can you see a future where Australia does ever manufacture cars again?
Well, I say never. And the fact of the matter is that we are working very hard to continue our auto manufacturing sector in this country. As I mentioned, there's a local company called Backwell IXL. They're now manufacturing and exporting about $1 million of components to Ford companies in the likes of China and other parts of the world. So we are still seeing some manufacturing happening in our town. But we see a strong future for auto manufacturing, and who knows, it could be electric cars of the future. There's no doubt that the manufacturing of vehicles will change. But if you look at the defence industry as a very strong example through what's happening in Bendigo, of course, and now with this very important contract coming up that the Australian government will be deciding on within the next 12 months, there is a bright future, but there is no doubt it will be a different future. But as I say, we have the skills, we have the history, and we have the energy to keep that going in our city. And I'm a great advocate for auto manufacturing in our city and advanced manufacturing. And I believe, Ashley, that we have the runs on the board to go from strength to strength.
The Liberal MP for Corangamite, Sarah Henderson, joining us live there from Geelong. Thank you for your time and best of luck with helping the community there with that transition. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Ashley.